go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously are coming off their greatest offensive performance of the season with Mason Rudolph leading them to a massive dub over the Cincinnati Bengals in Acrisure Christmas weekend.
The Pittsburgh Steelers just keep finding ways to get the job done, and even when you thought things were over, under Mike Tomlin, this team is never out of the playoff race, and they almost invent new ways to win every single week. In last week's game, they completely dominated the Bengals, so in this video, I'm going to be talking all about that and also what to expect from this team in the coming weeks now that they sort of control their own destiny. But before I begin, I would really appreciate it if you would drop a like and subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds, plus you can always change your mind. We are on the road to 20k subscribers, and your support truly means the world. Alright, so starting off, I want to talk about Mason Rudolph because he was of course asked to take over the starting role after being on the bench all year, and he came up big. And Pittsburgh fans were calling for him after Kenny Pickett went down and Mitch Trubisky struggled heavily, and so far, you cannot blame them. He looked incredible against Cincinnati, and even better than Pickett has all season, to the point where some Steelers fans, even if Pickett is healthy, would rather see Rudolph out there to try and make a run at the playoffs. Honestly, if Rudolph continues to play like this, then it's hard to go back to Pickett, because the Steelers offense looked the absolute best it has all season against the Bengals. Real fast, before I continue, to recap the win, Pickens started out the scoring with an 86-yard bomb from Rudolph to make it 7-0. And then in the second quarter, the Steelers absolutely exploded. They got 2 rushing touchdowns, one from Calvin Austin and one from Najee Harris, and a Boswell field goal, and before you knew it, they were up 24-0 at half. They had a little bit of a scare after T. Higgins took a slant route to the house to start out the second half, but Rudolph responded with an absolute beautiful throw down the sideline to Pickens for his second long touchdown of the night, and they never looked back from there as they ended up winning 34-11 in an absolute dominant performance over their division rivals in an absolute must-win game for them. As I said earlier, this was probably the best we have seen the Steelers offense all season. They scored a season-high 34 points and actually blew a team out, which is very rare for them this season. It feels like the offense may have something going after struggling for so many weeks, especially with Mitch Trubisky. Now, of course, I don't want to overreact after just one game, and we'll see what they continue to do, but if they keep it up, it is very possible we do not see Kenny Pickett ever get his job back. Alright, next, I want to talk about the man who absolutely stole the show after many weeks of criticism, that being George Pickens. People were saying he's a problem in the locker room, and of course there was a huge issue of him not blocking for Jaylen Warren, and Warren saying he would have blocked for him, which he proved he would do it for anyone with a monster pancake block, but Pickens is an absolute baller, and he proved that once again with his 4 catches for 195 yards and 2 TDs that he is very good and very talented, and people should not be worried at all about the locker room issues or his effort or anything along those lines, because he is an absolute dog, and if there is anyone who knows how to deal with personalities, it's Mike Tomlin. George Pickens will be a very good wide receiver in this league for years to come, and he reminded everyone of that with his dominant performance this past week. Next, I want to talk about something else that kinda got going, which is the run game, led by Najee Harris, who had 78 yards and a touchdown this past week. Najee Harris is starting to get going a little bit, and with him alongside, of course, is Jaylen Warren, who has been absolutely amazing this season. The Steelers may have a run game that they can rely on and kind of make things easier for Mason Rudolph if he stays in, or Kenny Pickett if they decide to go back to him. Either way, this would be absolutely huge for the Steelers, because I'm not sure you necessarily want either of these guys throwing the ball a lot down the stretch, and it would be nice to have a run game to lead the way. And like I said, they have 2 guys that are very capable at doing that for them. And then of course there's the Steelers defense, led by Defensive Player of the Year candidate TJ Watt, who had another sack this week. The defense absolutely exposed Jake Browning, who seemed to come back down to earth in this one, as they were able to force him to throw 3 interceptions, and the 2 that stood out to me the most were Patrick Peterson and Eric Rowe. Patrick Peterson stepped into a new role at safety due to the injuries and the suspension of Kazi, and did it very well. And then there is Eric Rowe, who was just recently signed as well as a safety, and he was also able to come away with an interception. The Steelers are dealing with many injuries on defense, as they just signed Miles Jack off the couch recently, and this defense was still able to absolutely ball out against Browning and the Bengals. If they can consistently get this kind of defense, then that will absolutely be huge for them, and it will be able to continue to keep them in games like they have done all season. And all the Steelers offense will have to do is just put up enough points to get a win. So basically, the Steelers absolutely now more than ever need this defense to be great, and they are very capable of it, as they showed this past week. Now, of course, it's still difficult for the Steelers to make the playoffs now, but they are still alive and will need some help. But more importantly, they need to control their own destiny by winning their next 2 games against Seattle and Baltimore. And if they do so, I think they're probably going to make it. First of all, starting with Seattle, which will be a tough game, but also a winnable one, they will have to attack with the run game, and then hope Mason Rudolph can pull off the same magic that he did last week. And then of course, as they have all season, they need to rely on their defense to prevent Seattle from scoring too much to try to make things easier on their offense, which although is coming off their best game, is still not solidified yet. If they win this game, they will have to beat Baltimore, which seems all but impossible right now until you remember that Pittsburgh is one of the 3 teams this season to already beat them. And the fact that if Baltimore is able to knock off Miami this week, they will clinch the division and the 1 seed, so they may just rest their starters, which is exactly what Pittsburgh fans must hope for this week. If Miami wins, the Ravens will have to play everyone because the threat of the Browns winning the AFC North is still very possible. So Pittsburgh fans must swallow a tough pill this week and root for Baltimore to knock off the Dolphins. So yeah, in conclusion, Pittsburgh does still have a chance, and if they somehow sneak into the postseason, this is not a defense that many teams will want to play. And if they can ride behind them, they may even upset a team like Miami in the first round. I know it's not likely, but hey, anything is possible in this league, especially if Pittsburgh can play anything like how they did against Cincy these next couple of weeks. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point in the video. If you enjoyed and haven't yet, make sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly means the world. And also, with the NFL season starting to wrap up, there is just so much to talk about right now, so let me know what you would like to see next. And until then, I will see you all later.